Hello, everybody. We are back at Soul Health Mentor Podcast, and today I'm really looking forward to interviewing Susan Batson, who has written a book, and there's a whole journey behind writing that book. And I'm just really looking forward to hearing that story and that journey. Hello, Susan. It's so nice to have you.
Hello, thanks so much for inviting me.
Yes, I am just fascinated about what I've learned about your book. And I know there's a pseudonym, that's a hard word. You
Pseudonym.
pseudonym. In German, you say pseudonym. So it's
Oh, okay.
very different. That's why I was struggling with it. And you will find the book. Tell us what is the name of the book and what is the pseudonym.
Okay, so the name of the book is Drink from the Well, and the pseudonym is Eliora, Eliora.
Yes, I love that. And there's a story behind that. So let's just start there. How come you used Eliora?
So when I so let's going way back,
Mhm.
I started to understand that there was another way of living my life that was much bigger and less restricted than the way I'd been living it. And it involved connecting with a quiet voice inside myself. It involved dropping down and in and listening to that quiet voice. And so that quiet voice told me that's what I understood that I needed to write a book and I needed to understand the role of fear in my life and the lives of everyone around me. And as I started doing this work, I realized the information, the ideas, the tools were not coming from me as Susan Batson, but coming through me as if I was being guided. Because there's no way I could have come up with this and understood all these deep, profound approaches and understandings myself and it was through the divine that I was making this journey. And so the name Eliora means connecting to the divine. And so with my husband, with my kids, with my mother and father, I'm Susan Batson. But in the work that I'm doing, I'm letting go of my ego, the roles that I'm playing, the restrictions to my life, and I'm becoming much expansive, open, and receptive. And that's as Eliora.
I love that. Expansive, open, and receptive. And the tagline of Soul Health Mentor Podcast is out of your mind and into your heart. Like,
Oh,
because in our mind we can contrive, it's this little self. I love that you shared that story, because when we let go of that little self and get open, expansive, and receptive, for me, in my language, that's dropping into my heart. But I can totally relate to what you're saying, that Eliora is that for you. And I also love that you really tune inward, and that as you're speaking, you're listening within, because we can get so distracted by outside things. And it is so, so important to hear that inner voice. So this inner voice, what I heard you tell us is that it started speaking to you when you yourself were facing a lot of fear in your life.
so this is my understanding. So I've always been fearful. I was a very fearful kid. I was a kid that cried in class when I didn't understand something or got something wrong. I was always easily overwhelmed by my negative emotions. And I grew up that way. And I lived that way my whole life. Um, and I started to understand that everyone, not just me, everyone is filled with fear, and that we let these fears control us, and that we have three common fears that we all share. And we feel these fears like 95, 98% of the day. The fear that people are going to judge you,
Mhm.
right? That you're not good enough, that they're going to be rejected or condemned. That's the first fear. The second fear is you're not going to get what you think you want and need. Big
Mhm.
fear, isn't it? How much of your life do you go through thinking you're not going to get what you think you want and need? The
Mhm.
house where you're living, the career, the money, the safety, the belonging,
Mhm.
big ones.
Mhm.
Um, the love, feeling important. Then the third fear is that you're going to lose something that's important to you. And it could be something from outside of who you are, like excuses of how to be, or material things, or it could be like safety. And it could be internal. You're going to lose something internal, like how you see, know, and define yourself, that you're going to start to lose. So those are the basically, I call them three fears, but it's like three fears plus A and B for the last one that fill our lives. And as I began to understand that, I began to notice that when I was feeling fear, I was feeling it in my body. And I was experiencing it as tension. So if you close your eyes and you just notice how much tension are you holding in your jaw,
The neck, for me, the neck.
your neck, the throat, the chest. How when you try to take a deep breath in, are you pushing against a lot of resistance? Right?
It's the
A lot
neck.
of people can. Yeah, that's always a bad one for most people. And your stomach, the churning feeling in your stomach. How about your shoulders? Tension in your body is fear. And stress is fear. Anxiety is fear. All those. Every time you experience a negative emotion, it is because you are afraid. Sadness, grief, anger, jealousy are all the result of fear. So this was the first thing I discovered. Because I grew up in a family, you were not allowed to feel negative emotions. It was not allowed. And I grew up not understanding anything about my emotions, just trying to repress them. I was crying all over the place. And even as an adult, I would just turn against myself in a way because I didn't know how else to deal with negative emotions. And I discovered that if you think, this is me, I have a degree in science. If you think of it like a chemical reaction, fear and a big arrow leading to negative emotions, that there's another arrow that goes back the other direction. Okay. If you attribute your fear, your dark negative emotions to fear, they no longer need to be expressed. So if you say to yourself, let's say you're in a really bad mood and you say, wow, I am really angry because I'm afraid. The anger diminishes and goes away. You can breathe. It's gone because you're acknowledging the source of the anger, which is the fear. As soon as you come back to the fear, you have to say it out loud because then it's not a thought, it's a reality. It just what changes everything. Does that make sense?
It does. And as you were speaking, I love that you're bringing it to the root cause being fear, because if we bring it to the root cause, then there's fear and then there's love.
Yes, that's exactly right. Exactly.
And then there's the fear emotions. Those are the top three fears. But then if we look at love, that could be pure source emotions.
Oh, it is. It's all the light emotions. It's all the compassion, the love, the kindness, right? Acceptance.
Yeah.
And so I call that light, and I call the negative emotions dark. And I call like all the emotions all the behaviors and thoughts that come along with the negative emotions, like beating yourself up, judging people, judging yourself, saying mean things, behaving in a destructive, hurtful way. I call that darkness.
Yes. And I would say, just so it doesn't get, it's not for me, yes, light and dark, polarity, part of being human.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I think what's important, because I've just recently had an experience where, just like you were brought up, emotions weren't allowed, and it was generally every emotion was wrong. And this is a huge trauma from childhood. And this huge trauma was also linked to emotional violence and physical violence, abuse. So the reality was that I can't let that darkness outside of me, because I will be abandoned, I will be judged,
Right.
I will
Definitely.
not seen. So what I think is important is that the darkness is not bad per se.
Right.
It's
Exactly. It's
it's
just normal. It's a
just,
normal part of being human.
yes.
Exactly. And the key, this is the most important thing I will say to you today. The darkness is normal. It's totally there. We're created to feel fear, and it does not need to be in control of our lives. There are tools, there are ways of seeing the fear, seeing other people's fear, and not letting it be in control so that you can choose to be more in your light. That's all I'm working on is helping people find that they don't have to live lives in darkness and controlled by fear.
Mhm.
They can just accept, oh, wow, yeah, I'm really afraid. I'm in a really dark place. What can I do to, to take care of it so that I'm not?
That is the key. What can I do to address it and to
Right.
shift it? Yes,
Yes, exactly. And the less judging and shaming you feel towards your darkness, the easier it is.
yes.
Eh, So I have a friend once who mentioned to me, she goes, I've gotten to a point now where it's like, oh gosh, I'm feeling fear and darkness again, like I have a cold. Like there's nothing to be ashamed about. I'm just going to, take some herbs for it and deal with it. It's nothing bad. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's normal. And
I
that's when you know you're at a really good place, is when you can just see it and not judge it.
That is a very, very powerful perspective shift right there to say, oh,
Yeah.
I've just got some fear and some darkness, like a cold. Let me get
Yeah.
some herbs. I love that.
Yes.
That's why we're normalizing. And I'm so grateful you are here and that you followed your call and that you listened to that inner voice and that you wrote your book and that you started working with people to help them shift out of the darkness into the light and to know that it's okay. You're not a bad person. We all have it, all of us. And
That's right.
literally is that everyone has experienced some kind of wounding. I call it wounding because being taught by your parents that negative emotions are bad is
Mm,
kind of wounding. It is as a small child, you'll integrate it as, oh, I'm bad. I'm bad.
right. Of course.
I'm
Yeah.
good because I'm thinking these emotions, but it's just emotions. It's nothing,
That's right.
it's humanity, right?
Right. And so one of the things I learned was that if you even talk to your children, when they're small, and you're like, wow, I can see you're really angry.
Mhm.
Are you afraid that you're not going to that we have to leave the park right now? And
Yes,
you don't want to. And they're like, yes.
yes,
Right? If you put words to their emotions and you attribute it to fear, you're helping them to understand where it's coming from.
yes,
And
yeah.
it's a game changer because it neutralizes it. I have a little boy that I work with who has impulsive anger. And we were talking about scenarios. I'm like, okay, you're angry. You're really so angry. You want to hit. What if you said to yourself, gosh, I'm really angry because I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to play with the other boys, or I'm not going to be invited. He goes, the anger is gone. It
It's
was, it for me, I would experience a lot of my emotions as depression. And I could feel it in my body. It was a physical weighing down, no energy, just like moving against, like pushing a rock up a hill. As soon as I would attribute it to fear, the depression would lift and I'd be fine again.
that is very powerful.
So it's 3 sentences. This is how you do it.
Mhm.
You say it out loud, because when you say it out loud, you're taking it out of your thinking and you're making it a sensory, real experience. You're bringing it into your body because you're hearing the vibration, you're saying it. You say, this is me, Susan Batson, filled with fear. This is me, Susan Batson, overwhelmed with fear. And this is me, Susan Batson, expressing my fear by feeling whatever, telling myself I can't do it, telling myself it's too hard, not wanting to get whatever. I tell them, and I just list, this is way I am personally expressing my fear right now. And just saying it and breathing, and everything shifts. And it's like, now I have some space.
Wow, it's like you're lifting the fog, you're
That's
lifting
right.
the veil, and
Yes,
and you can actually see that's not me.
that's not me. That's right. It's just my fear. Isn't that powerful?
That is very powerful. And I love that you shared this tool with us because I could feel as you were sharing it that I will be definitely using it when because I could relate. I was like, say it one more time, please.
Okay, so it's also in the book. Okay, so all these tools are in the book, so not to worry. All
Yes.
right, so it's this is me and your name filled with fear. This is me and your name overwhelmed with fear. And this is me and your name expressing that fear by,
The
and
fear.
you're going to put all the ways you're behaving by yelling at someone, by talking mean to yourself, by judging and condemning, by focusing on the negative. all these negative ways, all this darkness. We
Mhm.
just need to identify it, attribute it to the fear,
Mhm.
and it doesn't, and it no longer needs to be expressed because you're seeing and owning the fear.
Wow. So this is the book, Drinking from the Well, and
Yeah,
I can feel how that title, where as we're speaking and as we're exchanging, we're drinking from the well, from
that's right.
amazing. So when did you write this book?
So I wrote it, it took me quite a while. So I probably should explain the way I write is um, I'm guided to draw. I'm not an artist, bad artist, terrible artist. Okay. And you'll see my art throughout the book because the art guided the understanding.
Mhm.
I'd say, okay, 5 colors. These are the colors. All right, taking this color, what am I doing? And I would start to draw. And at the end of the drawing, I'd be like, wow, okay, I'm beginning to understand. It was through, it was by drawing and seeing the drawing that I began to understand this, what was involved, the steps, and what needed to be explained and how to create the tools. And it was because I don't think I could have done it without the drawing. It would just been too much.
This is so profound. May I share a synchronicity
Yeah.
in what
Okay.
you share?
Yeah.
This is so profound. This is divine orchestration at its best. So what you just mentioned, you intuitively were guided to do this. And I recently was in a workshop where exactly what you shared is being taught because it needs to be taught, like using your intuition, using creativity and art to decipher messages that come from another place. It,
Right.
it's like a new thought. It's a new idea that you could never come up with because you're just circling in your old ideas.
That's right.
And it was a 3-day immersion, and now I'm hearing you share you wrote your book, and I'm just blown away because it really is about bringing new thought, new ideas, new techniques into the world. To And with you specifically, I love how you're going to the root cause. You were called, to address fear. And
Yeah.
that is very, very, that right now is blowing me away. And I can relate to what you're saying. I was like, oh my gosh. So you brought through the work. That's what you channeled it. And that 3-day immersion was called Channeled Courses. And
Oh,
and it was teaching the mystic method.
oh, okay. Well, so that's what I've been doing for
Yes,
probably like the last 7 or 8 years
yes.
in total. And so, wow, that is funny. Um, and so I've started working. I have one-on-one clients. I have groups that I work with too in classes and workshops.
Mhm,
And I would try out some of my ideas on people and
mhm,
I teach them. And I was teaching the tools.
mhm.
And as I was doing it, I was like, okay, this has to be written down. I am terrified about writing. I'm terrified. And so it was a chance for me to actually start to learn, to see what my fears were, to sit with them and to let them go.
Mhm.
So it's imagine you're carrying around a heavy sack with you, weighs 1,000 pounds that you've been all the fears you've been accumulating over your life. I started working through and clearing that sack out because I needed to in order to write the book. I couldn't write it with all that fear in my way.
Yes.
And so I developed a next tool, which was to see the fears, to understand what they were, and to let them go.
And how do you let them go?
So the deal is, you for the first step is to understand what the situation is that's triggering the fear. Okay, it could be I'm afraid to sit down and write this book and have other people read it. You have to just get connecting with that quiet voice in yourself, understanding what is it that's actually making me afraid. I'm afraid to let go of controlling. You know, who reads it? I don't know. There's a million fears. You
Mhm.
understand the fear, you write it out, and then you have 3 fears to choose from, 1, 2, or 3. Okay. I'm afraid to sit down and write my book and have other people read it. Let's say that's it. And then I'm looking and I'm like, okay, it's fear number 1, because I'm afraid I will be seen, judged, and condemned.
Yes.
Right. And then the next step is as how, as what? You are like as a jerk, as stupid, as naive. Okay. And I spend a little time writing down my fears. I'm afraid of losing, how I see no one define myself as someone who hates to write, someone who can't write, someone who will never write if given an opportunity to run off and do something else, you know? So that's me. So I wrote all this down. And then what you do is you read the fears out loud and you are breathing. I call it, there's a special type of breathing that I found extremely helpful to me. It's not that complicated. Everything I teach is very simple. And it is, I learned how to meditate by noticing my inhale and my exhale. And then I understood that if I just noticed my inhale and I focused 100% of my energy, 100% of my mind on the sensations of exhaling, something magical happened.
Mm.
Okay. Because when you focus on sensation, you drop out of your thinking mind and into your body. When you focus on exhaling, you are actually energetically letting go. So
Yes.
it's a combination of the two. Do you see that?
Yes.
You are
Yes.
you're dropping out of your thinking mind into your body, you're energetically letting go.
Yes.
Okay. And so if you are seeing your fears from this place, focusing on your exhale as you read these fears out loud and just sitting with each one for a moment. Wow, I'm afraid I will lose, seeing, knowing, defining myself as someone who can't write. Just sitting with it for a moment, focusing on my exhale. You can energetically feel the fear, the tension drain out of your body. So it's not a thinking process.
Mm.
It's a body. It's a whole body. It's a subconscious. It's a deep body response.
Yes.
Because so many people, when I talk to them, they're like, oh, it's a logical thing. It's a thinking thing. It's not. It's a physical, in your body, meditative experience.
And I
Does
love how,
that make sense?
yes, it does, because you used your words. We all have our own words, and
Oh,
then
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
we say the same thing, but we use different words. And I love how you said you drop from your mind into your body, and I say in the heart, but it's the same thing. And then as you said it, as you said body, I realized, oh yeah, I say in the heart, but it's the same thing. And then I actually noticed myself as you were speaking, saying, okay, I'm dropping into the heart first. That's just my place where I go. But then I dropped from the heart into the womb.
Oh, wow.
That,
Okay.
that really landed. Then I was like, okay, now I'm in my body. Like I'm really,
Yes. Yes.
and then it would make sense to then be able, because you're in the body, you're able to feel the breath, and the breath connects you to your
Yeah.
emotional body. And
Yeah.
that's the breath work, the yoga breath work that is done. There's
Hmm.
many different, yes, it makes sense. It makes sense.
So I just want to explain. So the way I see the world, I see the work I do
Mhm,
is that there's this enormous universal wisdom out there.
mhm,
And I have just connected to a part of it
mhm.
and um, explained it in a way that I think people can understand and connect to. It's doable.
Yes,
It's not like saying never feel a bad thing about anyone ever again in your life. It's like, here are some tools so that you are not overwhelmed with fear and you don't feel like you need to think badly of your neighbor, right?
yes,
It's giving people but it's what I'm doing is it's just based on universal wisdom, which all the great, which right, all teachers, all religions are based on universal wisdom. And
yes.
this is just my connecting and explaining it in a slightly different way that I think is more user friendly.
I love that you said that, that it's more user friendly, because it feels very, I love that it's so simple, because there's such power in simplicity. And for
Mm,
me, it actually is the experience of complexity taking us away and creating more fear. So,
that's right.
so the simplicity is just, it really helps you anchor. And then I also feel that universal wisdom for me is a more friendly way of putting it, because there is unfortunately a lot of religious dogma and a lot of religious wounding. And having come from Germany to the States, living in the Bible Belt for 8 years,
Mm,
that was mind blowing to see that kind of thought process in people, where it seems very, I have to say it this way, to a European, the thought process seemed very medieval, very, very old, very ancient. So I love that you're, let's just put it under the hat of universal wisdom available for everyone, no dogma attached.
that's right. Exactly. No dogma at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Okay. And it's just user friendly. That is my gift. is to make things user friendly, to
Ye-
take ideas and processes and make them doable.
Yes.
So that's why I'm so excited about the book and the work, because I can teach it to anyone. I'm teaching it to 8-year-old kids, and it's helping their lives. I'm like, gosh, I wish I knew this when I was 8, but
This is wonderful because when you're teaching it to 8-year-old kids, they are going to grow up to be healthy human beings and they don't have to turn 45 and be diagnosed with CPTSD or PTSD because of certain traumas that were
right.
happening. And it is, again, a beautiful divine synchronicity that you mentioned that because I was literally talking to my husband about this because we watched a little video about a parent, a mom, and her little 3-year-old, and it was so cute because they were practicing emotional intelligence.
Ah,
They were talking about emotions, and mom was really calm, and the 3-year-old was reflecting himself. He was reflecting himself at 3 and said these really wise things where my husband was just so blown away and he kind of just said, man, this little guy is giving me whole personality. And so I also know, so the book is the well, and the energy that I'm feeling as we're talking, we're really, I can feel it. We're drinking from the well, that universal wisdom. I've experienced two of your tools. The listeners have experienced two of your tools, and it can be as simple as dropping into the body and breathing and
right.
connecting to the breath while you're letting go of negative emotions. You also have something, this is what I wanted to ask you about
Oh,
on your website, because I think it's fascinating that you created this, co-created this with someone. Someone helped you, but it was your idea that you have a labyrinth of sorts on your websites. Will you
mhm.
tell us about your labyrinth?
Sure. So I this was all my idea, actually, the labyrinth.
Yeah,
Um, and it was really hard to find someone that could help me try to create it on a website, because they were like, what the heck are you talking about?
yeah.
So what it is um each I created a map that's all interconnected like a labyrinth.
Hmm.
And you choose one, you just intuitively choose a color spiral, and it takes you to an idea, to a simple idea like um, receiving love. And then there's a small blog written about receiving love. And you think about it for a moment, and then there's questions that can take you in different directions. And you click on the question that most resonates with you, and it takes you within that labyrinth to another spiral and another color and another idea. And maybe it's finding ritual, creating ritual in your life. And so every time you go into the labyrinth, you're taking a slightly different journey of understanding some of the basic concepts of how to connect with the divine, how to connect with yourself and others, how to receive, how to be in a balanced life, but from a different perspective each time, because each journey is different. And where you start from is different each time you go. And then in the center is the central spiral, which is connecting to the divine. And I have poems by the mystic poets like Rumi and St. John. I have art from a young artist that I really like, Allegra Giddings. And I have photos that for me connect me to the divine. And so it's sort of an interactive website. Let's put it that way.
Yes, and what I meant, I knew it was your idea, but what I meant with co-creation, you needed to find someone that can create the website.
Oh yes, and that was the hard part. That was really challenging, I'll tell you. Yes, exactly.
I love that because when you shared that, the labyrinth and that you can choose option, it reminds me of choose your adventure. And
That's right.
and anybody that has played that game with the books, I mean, it's just so much fun. So where could the listeners find that labyrinth?
It's my website is Eliora's Journey. So it's Elioras journey.com. Um I have um I have my book listed there as well, and you can download the first 13 pages of the book for free if you're interested in just checking it out and seeing what it's about. And I'm ultimately going to have a page with workshops available in case people wanted to learn how to use the tools. And like in a 2.5 hour, 3 hour workshop once in a while.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
wonderful.
very exciting.
Yes, and I'm going to put it in the show notes as well, soulhealthmentor.com. I'll talk more about you, just your what you shared a lot, but we'll just make it nice and neat. So if the listeners want to find you,
Sure.
and they can also find you via the show notes blog. And what I wanted to just say, the workshops would be with you on Zoom, right?
Yes, with me on Zoom. Yes.
So it doesn't matter where you live,
Yes,
you can
exactly.
attend, which is the gift of technology connecting us right now in this interview. And it was such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I had such a lovely time with you.